We are taught that greatness is a solitary pursuit, a mountain climbed only by those with the strongest will. But look closely at every legend, every pioneer, and every world changer who ever lived. You will find a hidden architect standing in the shadows of their greatest achievements. There is a single, invisible moment that separates a life of quiet potential from a legacy that echoes through history. It isn't a stroke of luck or a sudden burst of genius that changes everything. It is the arrival of one person who sees something in you that you haven't even dared to imagine yet. Before that catalyst arrives, most stories begin in the suffocating grip of the ordinary. We find ourselves drifting through a world that demands conformity, where our unique talents are often mistaken for mere distractions. It is a quiet existence defined by the expectations of others and the limitations we place upon ourselves. Deep down, there is a persistent friction between who we are and who we are told to be. We feel the weight of untapped energy, a fire that lacks the oxygen to truly ignite. Without a guide, this internal spark often flickers out before it can ever become a flame. In these early chapters, the environment is rarely supportive of radical dreams. Whether it is a crowded classroom, a sterile office, or a small town with narrow horizons, the atmosphere is thick with skepticism. People around us see only the surface, judging our worth by current results rather than future possibilities. History is filled with these humble beginnings, where future giants were once overlooked and underestimated. They walked the same streets as everyone else, carrying the same doubts and facing the same closed doors. Their potential was a locked room, and they were searching for a key they didn't even know existed. This stage of the journey is often the loneliest, marked by a desperate search for validation. We look for a sign that our ambitions aren't just delusions or youthful fantasies. Every setback feels like a confirmation that we should simply settle for the path of least resistance. Growth requires more than just hard work. It requires a specific type of perspective that we cannot provide for ourselves. We are often too close to our own flaws to recognize our strengths. We operate within a limited feedback loop, repeating the same mistakes because we lack a higher vantage point. Eventually, we hit a ceiling that feels impossible to break through on our own. No matter how much effort we exert, the results remain stagnant and the vision starts to blur. This is the plateau where most people give up, convinced they have reached the absolute limit of their capabilities. But just as the shadows of doubt grow longest, the narrative begins to shift toward an unexpected encounter. A presence enters the frame, someone who has already navigated the labyrinth we are currently lost in. They aren't there to do the work for us, but to change the way we see the world. This foundation of struggle is where the story truly begins, rooted in an environment that offers plenty of pressure but very little guidance. We operate within the narrow confines of what we think is possible, unaware that our internal compass is spinning in circles. It is a landscape of untapped potential, waiting for a single spark to ignite the engine of transformation. That spark finally arrives in the form of a voice that cuts through the noise of our own insecurity. It often happens when we least expect it, during a routine moment that feels no different from any other day. A mentor steps into the light, offering a perspective that feels like a sudden breach in a reinforced wall. They don't just see our performance, they see our architecture. While others are busy critiquing the cracks in the foundation, the mentor is already envisioning the skyscraper that could stand in its place. This recognition is jarring because it forces us to confront a version of ourselves we haven't met yet. The conversation usually begins with a question that we are unprepared to answer. It isn't about what we are doing, but why we are settling for so much less than our capacity allows. This confrontation is the first crack in the glass of our carefully constructed comfort zone. We try to retreat into the safety of our excuses, citing the same limitations that have kept us grounded for years. But the mentor refuses to acknowledge these barriers as permanent fixtures. To them, our obstacles are merely puzzles waiting for a more sophisticated solution. There is a specific moment where the dynamic shifts from a casual interaction to a life-altering commitment. They offer a challenge that feels both terrifying and exhilarating, a bridge over the chasm of our own mediocrity. Crossing that bridge means leaving behind the safety of the known world forever. Suddenly, the environment that once felt like a prison begins to look like a training ground. The same tools we use to perform mundane tasks are now seen as instruments of high-level mastery. Our daily routine is no longer a cycle of survival, but a series of deliberate steps toward a larger objective. This new path is immediately met with the friction of reality, testing the strength of our newfound resolve. We stumble, expecting the mentor to offer pity or a way out, but they offer something much more valuable, a higher standard. They demand a level of excellence that we didn't think we possessed. The transformation is now irreversible, and the quiet life of the ordinary has been permanently discarded. We have tasted the possibility of greatness, and the hunger it creates cannot be satisfied by returning to the shadows. The catalyst has done its work, and the engine of our destiny is finally roaring to life. The initial surge of confidence is intoxicating, but it quickly collides with the cold reality of the craft. We step onto the field with a new vision, only to find that our hands cannot yet execute what our minds now imagine. The gap between our ambition and our current skill level feels like a vast, unbridgeable canyon. Our first attempts are clumsy and riddled with the very errors we thought we had outgrown. Each mistake feels like a personal indictment, a whispering reminder that perhaps the mentor's belief was misplaced. We look for the immediate breakthrough we were promised, but instead, we find only the grueling friction of the learning curve. The people around us, those who knew us before the transformation began, watch our struggles with a mix of pity and skepticism. They see the sweat and the stumbles as proof that we are chasing ghosts rather than reality. Their doubt acts as a secondary weight, pulling at our heels every time we try to take a step forward. During these early trials, the mentor often steps back, watching from the periphery as we grapple with the messiness of growth. They don't rush in to catch us before we fall, knowing that the bruise is a vital part of the lesson. This silence is agonizing, forcing us to look inward for the strength we used to borrow from their presence. We begin to experiment with new techniques, testing hypotheses that fail more often than they succeed. Every dead end feels like a waste of time, yet it provides a data point that we are not yet wise enough to value. We are building a library of what doesn't work, a necessary but frustrating prerequisite for true discovery. The internal critic, once silenced by the mentor's praise, returns with a renewed and more sophisticated vocabulary. It points to the polished success of others and mocks our raw, unrefined efforts. We start to wonder if we are merely pretending to be someone we are not, a fraud wearing the armor of a warrior. Then comes the first significant blow, a failure so public or so absolute that it threatens to derail the entire journey. It isn't just a small trip, it is a full-speed collision with our own limitations. In this moment of impact, the dream feels less like a destiny and more like a cruel joke played on the naive. We realize that the price of greatness is not paid once, but in daily installments of frustration and persistence. The path is no longer a straight line upward, but a jagged series of peaks and valleys that test our core identity. We stand at the base of the first true mountain, realizing that the easy part of the transformation is officially over. Standing at the base of that mountain, we look to the mentor for a reprieve, but we find only a more demanding gaze. They don't offer a hand to pull us up. Instead, they point toward the steepest path and ask if we truly belong there. This is the moment where the kindness of encouragement is replaced by the necessary cruelty of truth. We begin to argue for our own weaknesses, listing the reasons why this specific obstacle is insurmountable. We want them to agree that the circumstances were unfair or that the timing was wrong. But every excuse we throw out is met with a silence so profound it makes our words sound like the hollow echoes they are. The mentor begins to deconstruct our failure, not as a tragedy, but as a clinical case study in half-heartedness. They show us exactly where we chose safety over excellence and where we let our focus drift when the pressure mounted. It is a brutal audit of our character that leaves no room for the comfort of self-delusion. This confrontation forces us to investigate the hidden shadows of our own ambition. We are made to answer why we want this path if we are so unwilling to endure the friction it creates. The dialogue shifts from what we are doing to the very core of who we are becoming in the heat of the struggle. As the analysis deepens, the mentor introduces concepts that feel like a foreign language to our tired minds. They speak of nuances and subtleties that we were previously too blind to notice. We realize that our previous understanding was a mere caricature of the mastery that is actually required. The tension between our current reality and their ultimate vision creates a spark of genuine frustration. We feel the urge to walk away, to return to the world where good enough is celebrated. Yet, there is something in their unwavering expectation that keeps us anchored to the spot, unable to retreat. We start to see that the mentor's pressure is actually a form of respect we haven't yet earned for ourselves. They are holding the space for a version of us that can handle this level of scrutiny without breaking. The conflict isn't between us and them, but between our potential and our current limitations. The room grows quiet as the weight of the realization finally settles into our bones. We accept that the path forward will not get easier, but we will eventually become stronger. The confrontation has stripped away the last of our naivety, leaving behind a cold, hard determination to continue the climb. We threw ourselves into the work with a desperate, renewed vigor, believing that sheer willpower would finally break the seal. Day after day, we applied the mentor's brutal lessons, grinding our teeth against the resistance of the world. Yet, despite the sweat and the sleepless nights, the breakthrough remained a ghost on the horizon. The silence that followed was different than before. It wasn't a teaching tool, but felt like a final verdict. We looked at our progress and saw only a plateau that stretched into an infinite, gray distance. The realization began to sink in that perhaps some ceilings are simply too high for us to reach. Even the mentor seemed to sense the shift, their once piercing gaze softening into something that looked uncomfortably like pity. They stopped correcting our form and started speaking of the journey in the past tense. It was the quietest kind of heartbreak to realize they had finally stopped expecting the impossible from us. We began the somber process of dismantling the life we had built around this singular ambition. The books were shelved, the tools were put away, and the early morning alarms were finally silenced. Returning to the rhythm of a normal existence felt like wearing a suit that no longer fit, yet we had no other clothes to wear. When people asked how the journey was going, we learned to offer a practiced, hollow smile and a brief explanation of why it was time to move on. There is a specific kind of shame in public surrender, a weight that settles in the chest and stays there. We convinced ourselves that walking away was the most mature decision we could make. The arena where we once fought for greatness became a place we avoided, a graveyard of a version of ourselves that didn't survive. We watched from the sidelines as others took their turn in the light, feeling like a ghost haunting our own potential. The story we were writing had seemingly reached its final, disappointing period. On the last night before we intended to leave it all behind forever, we sat in the empty workspace one final time. The air felt heavy with the scent of wasted effort and the cold reality of a dream that had simply run out of fuel. We were ready to turn out the lights and walk into a future defined by what we couldn't achieve. Just as our hand reached for the switch, we noticed a small, weathered notebook the mentor had left behind on the corner of the desk. We opened it to the very last page, expecting a farewell, but found instead a single map coordinate and a date. It wasn't a conclusion at all, but a key to a door we hadn't even realized existed. We followed the map to a place that felt both ancient and entirely new, a location hidden in plain sight. The air here was charged with a different kind of energy, one that did not demand effort but offered immediate clarity. As we stepped through the threshold, the mentor was already there, waiting with the same steady gaze that had once terrified us. They did not speak of our recent surrender, but pointed instead to the work we had nearly abandoned in the workshop. It became clear that the plateau was never a wall, but a foundation we had been building without even knowing it. Every hour of frustration was a necessary layer of grit required to survive the revelation that was about to unfold. The mentor finally shared the secret of the catalyst effect, explaining that their belief was never meant to be a crutch. It was a mirror designed to reflect a strength we were too afraid to acknowledge in ourselves. They had pushed us to the point of breaking, not to destroy us, but to see what remained when the ego was finally stripped away. Suddenly, every harsh critique and every moment of silence from the previous months snapped into a perfect, coherent pattern. The nuances we once struggled to understand were now the keys to a mastery that felt like a natural extension of our own hands. The struggle was not an obstacle to the goal. The struggle was the forge that created the person capable of holding the prize. In a flash of blinding insight, the resistance that had defined our lives for so long simply evaporated into the thin mountain air. We reached for the task one more time, and this time, the world did not push back. It yielded with a grace that brought tears to our eyes. The breakthrough was not a loud explosion, but a quiet, profound alignment of skill, will, and purpose. The mentor watched the transformation with a subtle, knowing smile, their role as a guide finally reaching its conclusion. They explained that their greatest gift was not the knowledge they shared, but the permission they gave us to be extraordinary. We realized then that no one truly succeeds in a vacuum, as every giant stands on the shoulders of someone who saw them first. The weight in our chest that we had carried for years transformed into a soaring sense of belonging and undeniable power. We were no longer just a person who had achieved a difficult goal, we were a testament to the power of human connection and belief. The cinematic landscape of our journey converged into this single, eternal moment of absolute triumph. As the sun began to rise over the horizon, the path ahead looked clearer than it ever had before. We turned to thank the one who had started it all, only to find that the space beside us was now empty. They had vanished into the light, leaving us with the realization that the mentor's voice was now, and forever, our own. The silence left in their wake was no longer empty, but filled with the resonance of a purpose finally understood. We walked back down from that height not as the person who had climbed it, but as a vessel for a legacy that now demanded to be shared. The world looked different through these new eyes, every challenge appearing as an invitation rather than a threat. Years have passed since that morning, yet the ripple effects of that single belief continue to expand through everything we touch. We realized that the greatness we achieved was never meant to be a private trophy to be guarded in the dark. It became a torch, a steady flame fueled by the memory of the one who first dared to see the fire within us. Today, we stand as the bridge for others, looking for the same spark that was once ignited in our own struggling soul. The catalyst effect is a cycle that never truly ends, proving that the greatest success is found in the growth of those we choose to lift up. We have become the voice in the room that refuses to let potential go unnoticed or unrefined. But as one chapter of mastery closes, a new and perhaps even more daunting horizon begins to reveal its jagged edges. The strength we found in mentorship was only the first layer of a much larger architecture of human achievement. Now, we must look toward the next great multiplier, a force that transforms individual triumph into a global revolution.